Have you heard about behavioral health apprenticeships? They're strengthening the behavioral health workforce in King County and across Washington state. These programs give people the chance to pursue college-credited training as behavioral health technicians, certified peer specialists, or substance use disorder professionals. This innovative pathway allows learning to be embedded in their job schedule, guided by a professional mentor, and all within the convenience of their 40-hour workweek and payroll. Get connected soon to take advantage of their existing employer and apprenticeship support package. Be part of an exciting training movement that opens doors for diverse communities, supports local providers, and makes sure people have access to quality mental health care. Learn more at behavioralhealthapprenticeship.org.
Hi, everyone. This is Heather Venegas, Director of the King County Recovery Coalition, which is part of the Washington Recovery Alliance, and one of your King County Recovery Conversations podcast hosts. I'm here today to express our deep gratitude to our Recovery Day at the Mariners 2025 event sponsors. We are so grateful for your support and contributions and participation in celebrating recovery. Residence 12 Foundation, The Sober Curator, Recovery Beyond, Peer Washington, We Care Daily, AM/FM Healthcare, Evergreen Treatment Services, Hazelden Betty Ford, Fairfax Behavioral Health, Humana, Smoky Point Behavioral Health, Holman Recovery Center, American Behavioral Health Systems, Hurley Media Group, Behavioral Health Apprenticeship from the Health Career Fund, Sound, and King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division. Thank you so much for making this annual celebration of recovery during Recovery Month possible.
Hi, everybody. I am Christopher Archiopoli. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am your host today for King County Recovery Conversations. Thank you to the King County Recovery Coalition, Temple of the Trees Studio, this beautiful space that we're in today, and King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division. My guest today is one of my dear friends and somebody that I consider to be family, Marc Shelffo. He's the director of Peer Seattle. He and I have known each other for just about 10 years now.
10 years now, yeah.
I entered recovery in end of 2016, so that's when I met Marc. Marc was my peer recovery coach. I probably would not be alive without him.
Oh.
No, it's true. I do credit you with that. And I, for some reason, want to cry right now thinking about it. So, I just think that you are somebody that changed the trajectory of my life. And there are very few people in each of our lives that we can credit with really shifting the trajectory. And for me, you are one of those people.
Thank you, Christopher.
So to start out, thank you for being here. I'm really excited that I finally convinced you to come join us.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
But I would love for you to, I could tell a version of your story, but you are one of the best storytellers I know. And you can tell your story better than anyone. So I'd love for you to tell your recovery story in whatever version you feel comfortable with. Keep in mind that this is a half an hour show.
Right. Well, the Cliff Notes version, right?
Yeah.
I don't need to go into the 11 years of active meth use, right? It was horrible. It was debilitating. But I can start with recovery itself. I really tried a lot of the usual, modalities of recovery. Inpatient treatment 4 times in 2 different states, 3 or 4 halfway houses. And I ran through my entire time there. I never left early. And probably along the way, they helped a little bit, information is good, right? Helps me make more informed decisions. But when it came right down to it, when I was at the end of my rope, I ended up trying non-traditional medicine for my recovery, which worked phenomenally well. It's a drug called ibogaine, and ibogaine was, first of all, when I did it, I had zero hope that it was really going to work for me, because I think at that point in my addiction, had I actually invested the idea of this hope that this is my last chance, this is the one thing that's going to work for me, and it failed, I think that really would have been the end of me. And so I zeroed out my expectations. I followed directions, which involved not taking my drug of choice, which was meth, for 3 to 4 days before taking the substance. And ibogaine, ibogaine, for those of you that want to go and do some research on it. So after taking this substance, I found that when I was taken home and dropped off, and was by myself, and realized suddenly that I had 3 days where nobody knew what I was doing, I realized for the first time that something was different, because I wasn't thinking about getting high or where to get drugs. I wasn't jonesing. In fact, as I sat there, I couldn't even conjure euphoric recall. Could not. It was almost like, at that point, after 11 years, it was almost like a disability. I was like, I can't conjure a euphoric recall.
Yeah, where's my limb?
Yeah. Where's my limb? Where's my Gollum in my head? My precious, right? I realized in that moment it was gone. Like that part of my addiction was completely turned off and absent. And I even tried to conjure up in my mind's eye like the perfect scene for me, right? And even after that, it was like, meh. Nah, no. And then I realized at that moment, something was definitely different. And I just realized in that very second, that for the first time in 11 years, it was just me. And one of the beautiful things about ibogaine is it allowed me to see without any cognitive distortion what my relationship to that substance was, and the effect that it had on not just the people that are closest to me, but 2 degrees of separation. And that was a huge impact to see in my mind's eye. And so that was in 2013. And it really, really springboarded my recovery, because one of the most wonderful gifts of ibogaine was that I had no post-acute withdrawal. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't tired. I wasn't emotionally unstable. I wasn't having problems sleeping. And that really, really allowed me to jump into my plan. And I had made many plans along the way. And the last time I did this, I went around to all the people who were my champions, the people that really cared about me, and said, here's my list and everything I intend to do. And I went in with a completely open mind. If they suggested something, I would add that. And so as I went around, someone was like, well, yeah, I said, this looks all pretty great, but you don't have any meetings in here. Don't you want to do 12-step meetings? And I was like, okay, fine, 12-step meetings, and shopped it around to somebody else. They're like, great, these all look really good. Yeah, see, you got 12-step meetings, but you're not going to get a sponsor? And I was like, okay, I'm going to get a sponsor, right? So doing things in recovery are often things that I don't want to do, but I got out of my own way, and I allowed the people who I knew were trying to take care of me to set my agenda. And I stuck with that for my first 18 months and really, really executed it. And, as I went on, some things fell off and other things got more enhanced. For example, I got into SOS, strength over speed, and found that peer model really, really resonated with me, right? Yeah. And that's kind of where you and I came in contact with each other.
Yeah, I think that harm reduction based model that reduces shame and stigma. I don't know that you can ever fully get rid of shame and stigma, I think, because so much of that is internal for us. But part of SOS, strength over speed, is encouraging us to let those things go. Right. Because society puts those on us, but we also put them on ourselves. Yeah. And so SOS really helps us to move past those things. And I know that's really because you had adopted that model and really embraced it. That was one of the reasons that I was attracted to you as a coach and mentor. Yeah. Was because I felt this is a person that gets me. I
think one of the things that impressed me the most when I first came into the peer rooms was to see recovery on other gay men who were recovering from crystal meth, where it looked powerful and beautiful and attractive, and a part of me was like, I want some of that. Yep. I need some of that in my life. And gathering those people around me is really what helped me start reaching for better versions of myself. And I think that being in the presence of people like that too has a lot of ability to dispel that shame and that stigma. If I go into a meeting and hear something that challenges some of my, can I swear in here?
Yeah.
Okay. Fucked up thinking. Thanks for the permission.
They'll bleep it if they don't like it.
Okay, that's cool. I'm all right with that.
Yeah.
if I could find something that displaces some of that bad thinking, then that's a win for me that day. And I saw a lot of that in the peer rooms.
Yeah, I think that's really sort of a magical thing when you get to be around people, because community takes the power away. It adds power to certain things, like our connection, like our ability to be strong, but it removes the power from the dark things.
Yeah, it does.
Because I know that for me, when I sit in a meeting room and I hear other people saying the things that I think are my darkest secrets, it means that I'm not, I'm special, but I'm not unique.
Yeah, right.
It means that maybe I'm not that weird. Maybe the things I did were not that fucked up.
Right.
Because these other 10 people did them too.
Right. It's good to hear that, right?
Yeah. So it normalizes a little bit.
It does.
Because sure, it's not something that broader society does. Our experiences as gay men in recovery from crystal meth addiction probably have a set of experiences that not everyone has.
Unique to that population in many ways.
But, we're also not alone. Right. And that feeling of not being alone is important.
And, we find we're at least far enough on the other side of our active addiction that in those circles and in that confidence, we could make jokes that we understand that we end up laughing so hard, and that laughter also is a healing salve, right? It helps displace that. There were so many times growing up where both you and I took little sips of sugar water that we thought were good for us, and really it was other people's poison, right? And those little drips and drabs are what compile that shame, right? And so it's not an easy thing to dislodge. And so having your fellows around you, where you could even talk about the messed up stuff that you did along the way. Those are sort of the ways that we decouple from those, right? And I created a new identity in that process and understand that, this is a healing process. And only by being around other people in recovery do I have the ability to sort of sense where I am in my healing process as I'm walking along with them.
Yeah, well, that's, I think, for me, the important part of continuing to stay connected to recovery, even though, I've been in recovery for almost 10 years. Yep. You've been in recovery for longer than that.
13.
But continuing to stay connected with it is the reminder of where I came from and also what I have to lose.
Right.
And for me, I don't know if this is how you feel, but I feel to some extent it is a way of healing damage that I did.
Yeah, for sure.
I did damage to myself. I did damage to my community. Yeah. This is my way of continuing to give back.
Yeah, my real aha moment was realizing as I was becoming a peer coach that the wisdom that I had gained and was still gaining in my recovery process was actually a benefit to somebody else. And that had so much power in relieving me of the shame and the guilt that I was carrying around with me early on in my recovery. Right? Not all of it, obviously, but in service to other people who were struggling where I had been, only recently in geologic time, right? Was really, really powerful. And it became sort of a spiritual tenet for me. I realized, and I've often shared this with it, when I was getting high, I wasn't necessarily a bad person. I wasn't stealing people or beating anybody up, but I was doing damage in my community and to my tribe. And so the spiritual work of helping people become better versions of themselves, maybe even helping them become peer coaches to go out and help other people, that just seemed like it had a cumulative effect that was healthy. And when I think about karma, which I kind of believe in karma, what I put out comes back to me, that was healing my community. In the same 2 degrees of separation that I saw I was damaging it, I could now be healing it, which is the work I feel like I've been doing for the last 13 years.
Yeah, and I want to pull on that thread in a second.
Okay.
But before we get there, I want to acknowledge that today is your birthday.
Oh my God, it is my birthday today.
And over the weekend, I was up in Canada and I was at the Bouchard Gardens.
Oh, yeah.
And while I was there, I saw a hummingbird.
Oh.
And as I was leaving the gift shop, I found this little cup that has a little hummingbird in some indigenous style. And I thought, well, I'm seeing Marc on Tuesday. Number one, it's his birthday. Number two, hummingbirds always make me think of him.
Yeah.
And three, he's driving me to this podcast. So I wanted to get this for you.
Thank you.
But some of it was because you tell an amazing story about hummingbirds and the importance of hummingbirds. And I wanted you to share that.
Thank you,
the importance of hummingbirds as like spiritual advisors and guides, and the story that, if you don't mind sharing your story.
I will tell this story under one condition, that you show everybody what you did as a result of it.
I will do that. It's only fair.
Okay, that's great. All right. I'll tell you the story.
And if you don't want to hold on to that, I can put it under.
All right, here we go. A long time ago.
The galaxy far away.
In 2007, in the darkest days, leading into the darkest days of my addiction, I had a house up in Shoreline, and my partner, who I'd been with for 5 years, was busy in the background as I sat on my patio, taking pictures off the wall, crumpling paper around it, and packing it away. And I had these large sliding windows screened, and I was sitting on my patio, and before me was a rather large flower basket, something like, I don't know, 2.5 feet across. I spent $160 on starter flowers for that in the spring, and at this point in July, it was a waterfall of beautiful color just falling down towards the ground, and vines, petunias, all kinds of stuff. And I was really in a dark place. I often think of myself like Sigourney Weaver in Aliens when she's got that big cigarette that's burning down in one long ash to her finger. That's kind of how I was out in my patio. And I didn't even see the color of those beautiful flowers. I was just in a very dark place as I continued to hear the crinkling of that paper and the photos going into boxes and my ex-partner, packing to leave right behind me. And as my thoughts were getting really, really dark, I suddenly heard this zzz, and I kind of came out of myself for a second and looked around and didn't really see anything and just started going right back to that dark place. And then I hear zzz again. And from behind this big bouquet of flowers, this little hummingbird comes out and goes zzz, back behind. And I was like, oh, hummingbird. Oh, it's gone, right? And then it started going into that dark place. And then off to the right side, back out. It's like zzz, back behind. I was like, oh, it's gone again. And then suddenly, just as I'm looking down to the ground, the hummingbird comes out from underneath the basket, between these vines of flowers, right across the concrete floor, and I see the dust kind of go whoosh on either side, and it comes right up to my face like this. And it's sitting there looking at me going, zzz, zzz. And it went on for a long time. Like it seemed like forever, but it was about 10 seconds. It's just looking at me back and forth. It's doing this little thing with his head, and I'm going, I can't even catch my breath. I don't even know what's happening right now. And it suddenly stops, turns around, looks over its shoulder, winks at me, and then darts off. And within 30 seconds, I'm like booger crying. And I'm trying to hide it. I don't want Scott to know that I'm having a moment, right? But in 30 seconds, I'm crying. I'm just like gasping for air and just tears coming out my face. And my partner, his baritone, goes, he used to call me Thick Boy back in those days. And it was thick at the time. So he goes, Thick Boy, what's going on? And I'm like, bird came out. And I was like, it took me a little while to get it out. But finally, I was able to relay the story to him. And he goes, oh, yeah, I see. I understand. Well, some Native American cultures believe that when a hummingbird comes up to you in this fashion, it's bringing you a message. And I immediately was like shut down. I was like, I don't want to hear your sage advice. Just shut up. You're fucking leaving me. Just go away, right? And I went back to my dark place. And so we're going to fast forward through 2.5 years, homelessness in Minneapolis, several more treatment centers, ICUs, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm finally back. I'm doing my ibogaine back in Lake Sammamish with my friend Alan. And as I'm coming through that experience and I'm coming off of the bed for the first time, because you can't really stand when ibogaine is coursing through your system, you get very shaky and dizzy and all that. I got up and stood up to walk into the living room, and Alan comes racing through the door, bouncing on one foot sideways. And it had been raining that day. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, Marc, you're never going to believe what I just saw. And I'm like, I'm on an exotic hallucinogen from Africa, and you want to tell me what you just saw? I'm like, all right, Alan, go ahead. Tell me what did you just see, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I was coming across from Dad's house next door, across the driveway, and I heard this zzz, zzz noise, and I looked up, and if you've ever been to Lake Sammamish before, it's like a cliff that goes down. There's always like a hill that goes down to the shoreline, and we were down near the shoreline. He goes, I looked up at the driveway, and this hummingbird came flying right across the ground, close to the road, right down the curve, and it came right up in front of my face, and it was just hovering there looking at me, and it was between me and the house, and I was trying to come up, but it was just there in front of me, and it turned around, and I think it looked at me and shook its tail and flew off. And I was like, what? Wait, what? What did you just say? And he started telling me again. I said, no, wait, stop. I've never told you. He's like, no, you've never told me the story about Hummingbird. And like a lightning bolt hit me in that moment. I was like, fuck. Scott was right. The hummingbirds do bring you messages. And this is the end of the sentence. And this is, you survive. You make it through. To this day, I can't believe that happened. And so many other things. But like that one, like two bookends to like passing through the darkness of the worst part of my addiction. There was like a ray of sunlight that hit me in that moment. I realized that I was really going to survive this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my hummingbird story.
Well, it's a beautiful story, and it's a story that I love to hear you tell every once in a while. And, you know, the way that you can tell it's real too is it never changes. You know, like you know, some people when they tell stories exaggerate them and it changes every time you hear it. Yeah. There's little details, but you are very consistent in the way that you tell it. So that's how you can always tell. Like
it's a strong memory.
To me, that's how I can tell that this is a very true thing. And one of the reasons it's impacted me, and, you know, I promised, I don't know how much I can show this without taking my whole shirt off, which I'm not going to do. But I do have a hummingbird tattoo on my shoulder, and the reason for that is because of you.
Yeah.
And, because
I never have seen it. You never shown it to me.
My whole tattoo?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
When we get out of here.
When we're not on camera, I'll take my shirt off for you.
All right, deal.
So I wanted to make sure that we had time for that story, because if we got to the end and we were running out of time, I didn't want to rush that.
Glad I was able to tell it.
But you know, I wanted to come back to the thread that we were starting on, which is about community and about the importance of peer work and what it means to be a peer. And, you know, for a long time, you know, at Peer Seattle, before you were the director, you were in charge of the coaching program.
Yep.
And so maybe do you want to start out by talking about what the coaching program is, and then maybe talking about your philosophy and around all that?
Sure. Well, I want to say that all the services at Peer Seattle are free. Right. And we have a very, very large volunteer corps. In fact, we are a peer-run organization. Most of the individuals that are employed there came through that door at one point for services, volunteered, maybe became a coach or ran a meeting. And the coaches that we have there, we have about 40 coaches, are trained in the CCAR model, which is a national certification. Those coaches will meet within anywhere between 1 and 13, up to 13 matches, which I think George and Tony have had up to 13 matches. I myself had 16 or 17 at one point when I was on disability and not doing anything but like recovery work in the community. And, you know, members will come in and they will speak with me. They will, in confidence, behind closed doors, tell me their story. They may dip into traumas, they may dip into current events, they may dip into things that they would like to accomplish. And in that process, I'm able to match them with somebody that has a similar experience in my core of coaches. And those individuals get to meet 1 hour a week for 26 weeks and, you know, hold space with one another. I think really what it means to be a coach is holding space for somebody without that judgment, without re-traumatizing or re-stigmatizing, without even walking down those usual trails where shame leads us, right? Just to be in acceptance and to hear and hold space and really help another human being figure out what is their next indicated step. Mm-hmm. Right? If there is a next indicated step at that moment, right? When we meet someone where they're at, let me just be in a place of holding too, and that's okay also. I've had people that have been in a place of holding for 8 or 9 weeks before they decide there's a step they want to take. And I think that being there as a peer is really about like wrapping your arms around somebody, figuratively speaking, and making that a safe place for them just to be wherever they happen to be in that space and time without judgment, and letting them know also that wherever you happen to be right now, it's okay, and it's acceptable. And you're right where you need to be right now, right? For you to be at this point of your life, because you came in, right? You came in, you're here, And that's really just all of it right there. Whatever happens after that is a part of that peer process, right?
Well, and, not every peer, I mean, even though there's like a core peer training, there are core skills that are focused on motivational interviewing and, how to connect with people. Oh, and there's Bruno.
Hi, Bruno.
Hi, buddy.
Nice entrance.
Bruno is also an enormous part of my recovery, enormous part of a lot of people's recovery. Would you like to introduce Bruno before we dive into that?
Yes, this is Bruno. I got Bruno right practically the weeks that I got into my recovery. He's a magical mystery dog. He picked me out of the entire litter. When I went down there on my second visit, I had a little collar that my friend said, put on the dog you want down there from that litter. And while I was considering one of his brothers and sisters, he jumped in my lap, grabbed it out of my hand, ran to the corner of the room with it in his mouth, turned around and sat down and looked at me. And so first time I've been picked by an animal, but yeah, he's been with me for every step of the way. So yeah, and he's, meets 30 people a day down at Pier Seattle. So if you want to come meet Bruno, come on down to Pier Seattle and lean on your legs and look up at you.
Yeah, he's there 5 days a week.
Yep.
Well, yeah, he's a special dog. Yeah. And to have a dog pick you is big. Both of my last 2 dogs picked me.
Wow. It's a really amazing experience.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I guess we get the dog that we deserve or the dog we need.
Yeah, the dog that we need.
But I guess that connects to peer work also because, even though all dogs are special and all peers are special, not every peer is right for everybody.
Right. What is a peer?
Right.
Right. Somebody that's your peer is somebody that shares some perspective with you, some station with you, right? Some experience in their past that makes them a peer, right? So peer values doesn't make you a peer, right? Necessarily. But understanding those peer values can make you a peer for somebody.
Right.
Right.
Well, and I know this topic this question comes up sometimes. What is the difference between being in recovery and being a peer? Because,
I think they're synonymous, honestly. I'm in recovery. There's aspects of my journey which I consider myself recovered from, but like there's a lot of other things I'm still recovering from, and I think that the being a peer and being in recovery are the same thing. When I'm sitting as a peer coach for somebody, it's not like I'm not in recovery because I'm a peer coach. I have my own journey that's going on. I just happen to be down that road a couple miles, right? And hopefully I can hold up a sign or two to help somebody on their way so they don't get lost.
There's lots of metaphors.
So many metaphors.
So, and what do you see as the value of community? I mean, not just in recovery, but particularly right now, when there are forces trying to sort of tear us apart.
Yeah, this is gonna be metaphors again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean,
I was very isolated in my recovery. I surrounded myself, or in my addiction, I surrounded myself with like-thinking minds, and so therefore, I just saw myself reflected back as an addict. Right. It is so important to have people in community around me in my own recovery because each of them holds up a mirror for me to see a different angle of myself I would not normally see myself. And those are validating experiences. I refer to them as the gifts that people give, and I don't get those on my own in recovery or just meeting with like a counselor or something like that, right? Having community around me shows me who I am, allows me to practice my, accountability, my responsibility, building trust, which is not something that I can do on my own, right? So, and that in turn allows me to have a better relationship with myself as well, like how I show up for other people and how they show me parts of myself I would not normally see myself. I would not be able to see otherwise. I think that's one of the parts, and then also I think human beings just really by nature really do want to help one another and see them succeed. And so, like, when I hear you share an intention in community, that gets bounced around, right? And people hear about that. And so when people hear about, like, what an intention is, I think that just has a way, it's not the laws of attraction, but in a way it is. But there's, like, an actual logic to it. Like, human beings are, by nature, social creatures. And we want to see each other succeed because the stronger we are individually, the stronger we are as a community.
Yeah, I truly believe that.
Yep.
We've talked a little bit about stigma, but I know when we were prepping for this, we talked a little bit about, the sort of stronger stigma that exists maybe for different substances. And, both of us, our story involves injection drug use with crystal meth, which, there's lots of like stigmatizing identities there.
Even within the method community, there's there's people stigmatize how you use, right?
Right. And people, there's, different classes of drugs, like, drinking is the good addiction.
Yes.
And as you move into harder drugs, those are the bad addiction.
Right.
But even within the meth community, do you smoke? Do you snort? Do you booty bump? Do you inject? What's your method of administration? And,
right.
People who inject drugs are often looked at even within the community as
the bottom
less
feeders.
than. Yeah. So, tell me a little bit about how you've reconciled that and how you've, whether or not you've moved past it, but, how you've maybe assimilated that into who you are.
I mean, a part of it has to do with acceptance and self-forgiveness. And that's not just something that one comes to, right? I can't just forgive myself and have acceptance around things. But in my recovery process, there are moments of clarity. And sometimes I was doing the best that I could with the skills and the tools I had at the time, even if it meant me using crystal meth as an IV drug user. I was trying to do that in order to survive from my perspective that I was at that point. And I can't hate myself for the perspective of the circumstance of the person I was back then. But I can build a stronger relationship with myself as I make difficult decisions to take paths that don't have immediate payoffs, play in the long game, right? Making investments in myself, relationships, and community, and waiting for those things to sort of come back and share those gifts with me that tell me I'm on the right path, right? Those are the things that allow me to trust myself more and forgive myself, right? I can look back and say, I forgive you for doing that. That's all you knew at the time. But look at these decisions that you've made not just by yourself, but in committee sometimes, right? And that's what I kind of look at our recovery groups sometimes as making decisions for myself that are better on committee, getting that feedback from other people and finally this is a good choice. I should probably try this, right? And then doing it. And I think that's sort of the path, honestly.
Because I don't know if this was your experience, but I made a lot of bad decisions when I was in my active addiction.
Sure.
So I often, even to this day, I sometimes doubt my ability to make a good decision, and I will look to my committee. I will look to my community as to run things by them. Yeah. Especially bigger decisions.
The importance of community, exactly.
Right? I can decide what to eat for dinner, but when I'm deciding to go to school or deciding to who to date or what to do with my job, I still I still doubt myself a lot.
I think that skill sets around those decision-making process are not going to eliminate the feeling of doubt because there are so many variables in the decisions that we make moving forward in our life, right? But I think the strength of character to be vulnerable with other people, to say I don't have the answers and I'm feeling kind of weak around this. Can you help me make some choices around this or give me some feedback? I think that's strength. And that's not strength that you had when you were in your addiction and not strength that I had in my addiction. Those are skill sets that we built along the way, I think, that help us heal in the process, help me heal, definitely, in the process.
Well, it's learning to know that we don't know everything, learning to know when we're wrong, and learning when to ask for help.
Yeah, and trusting people, right? Because, in my active addiction, I didn't trust people to come into my life and make good decisions for me. So I didn't allow them, I didn't let people mentor me. So allowing people to mentor, these are all skill sets that are part of community that strengthen us individually, strengthen me individually, speaking for myself. And I've seen you do that also. And that's why your recovery is going so well.
Well, and part of it's you. You can take a little bit of credit.
I'll take a little bit of credit.
One of the things you said earlier was something about, you were not a bad person when you were in your active use. No. And, I want to extend that to probably the vast majority of people who are in their active use. Just I would say the percentage of bad people in active use is probably about the same percentage as the general society.
I would agree with that.
The majority of people that I met in active use and who I continue to meet in active use are not bad people.
Yeah.
These are people who have made bad decisions, like all of us, but their decisions may have held greater consequences.
Yeah.
And the way that our world chooses to look at them is shameful.
Yeah.
I mean, that is what people should be ashamed of, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, peer isn't something I do when I walk through the door down there. It's what I do when I'm not at work, right? In all my interactions with people in community. I think that's important. Like that one person that meets you where you're at without putting shame on you, making you feel like you're a piece of crap, like that can be healing in a moment. And those kind of seeds that we drop, they're important for a community, even if we don't see the outcome. And I would try to remind myself of that all the time when I'm walking around, because I don't just work in my community. I live in my community that I work in.
Well, we're running out of time, but I do want to ask you one more question.
Okay.
And ending on sort of a positive note.
Okay.
What are some of the gifts of recovery for you?
Oh God. Better health, better mental health, better physical health, better relationships, trusting myself, stronger family ties, more peace, more emotional intelligence. I mean, I have a future and I can see that future and I can think about that future. I have hope. There's so many. I mean, we could sit here for hours and just start like throwing cue cards out on it. But I mean, when so much different than what I didn't know when I first came into my recovery, there's been things I would never even expect. This is a gift of recovery, sitting here and talking with you. Years since we first met, and to see you sitting there beautiful and powerful and strong in your recovery, doing a podcast. I mean, come on.
Yeah, this wasn't a thing that would have happened 10 years ago.
No, right? And to be sitting here with you talking about this is a gift of recovery. It's a milestone. It's a mile poster, like where we've been and where we've come. And I think that just my head swirls when I think about the gifts of recovery. My partner Bill is a gift of recovery, you know. My dog Bruno is a gift of recovery. My job, people I work with, my community, even the crap I have to put up with is all gifts of recovery that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Well, because we're capable of dealing with the crap.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge part of why I still view those things as, because when I was in my active use, like the smallest inconvenience could set me asunder for days. Okay,
I'm going to give you one last example, right? I remember when I first got into recovery and I was in a meeting and somebody was sitting there and they said, their grandmother died or sister died. I remember somebody died, right? And they were just so grateful that they were able to experience their grief and be sober. And I just turned to somebody and said, that's the biggest pile of crap I ever heard, right? That just like which of course I would think that now. Like, right. I understand the gift of being able to sit in an emotion and not have it overwhelm me, to experience it in that moment. Right. And so I get that now, but like just the juxtaposition of how far I've come and you've come, it's just, that's pretty stark.
Well, yeah, because to not be present for certain things is a lost opportunity.
That's all we were doing, is not being present, right? I was trying not to be present.
We were present in that moment.
In that moment, right?
Whatever that moment was, that was what we were present for.
It's very siloed.
Usually
experience.
It was unclothed.
Yeah.
so
bad.
Yeah, and so much not fun.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's not fun.
Well, Marc, you are one of the gifts of my recovery as well. To be here with you and to be able to have this conversation, is just beautiful to me.
Thank you, Christopher. This has been just a joy.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing me here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I've been hoping to get you here for a while.
You got me. I'm your get.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Marc.
Thank you,
Bruno. Thank you, Bill. And thank you, Nate, and Tree of Life Studio.
This is beautiful.
Here in Normandy Park. It's a fun little adventure in the forest.
Yeah.
But thank you, King County Recovery Coalition and King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division for allowing us to be here for King County Recovery Conversations. And we will see you next time.
Peace.